So, I'm Alexis Weissen. Thank you, Zoltan, for the introduction. Today we were going to have one more here on the stand to talk a little bit more about Sweden. But as we are only me and Pekka, we were going to focus a little bit more on Finland, because that's where everything's happening now in these last few days. But we'll have a brief update on the Nordics as well. But how about you tell us a little bit about yourself to start with?
Hi all, nice to be here. Yeah, my name is Pekka Ilmivalta. I have experience in this industry since 2003. I worked for the Finnish monopoly company since 2003, and well, I was away for 4 years in between, but now back in the industry since it started happening in Finland. And back then, we used to work very closely with the monopolies in Finland, Sweden, Denmark, and Norway, and it's been interesting to see all the developments in those countries, and well, maybe we'll take a closer look.
Yeah, I mean, Denmark was the first ones out. So, how about that? How have we seen Denmark work since then? And are they doing any changes or trying to make any changes now?
Yeah, Denmark was the first to open the market in 2012, and I think they did it very good. They were a good example how to do it, and they have been quite stable. They opened B2B licenses last year, so they introduced those, and so they have been doing very good. Channelization rate is relatively high still, and the companies, most of the companies applying for the licenses are still there.
Yeah, I think I'm coming from the operator side, worked many years on the operator, more on the supplier now, but I think Denmark is one of the European licenses that are, or regulations that are best in terms of how to treat and work with operators in creating a stable environment to work with. But then Sweden came, 2019, and Sweden took a lot of learnings from Denmark. They did some changes, they did some other unique changes, especially for loyalty systems and so on. And now they're looking at how they can change again. So what's happening in Sweden?
Yeah, I think the Swedes were not as pragmatic as they were in Denmark, and there was a rush to Sweden and over 90 operators, and they really made the channelization rate quite high, but now they're going down, and that's the problem right now. And there's lots of debate that something should be done in order to fight black market.
And then finally, before we move into Finland, we have Norway. I mean, Norway has always been keep the monopoly, never move into it, but maybe there's some changes you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Well, Norway is the land with oil and money, and so. But there's an election coming this year, and there's lots of debate that maybe the last frontier will open also for a license market. But let's see. That will be one of the big topics in Norwegian elections.
All right. Well, let's talk about Finland. And there's a lot of Finland is the next one to open up, aiming for 1st of January 2027 to fully open the market, applications starting early next year. But how is the process right now?
Actually, as Sultan referred to, it's quite breaking news right now. We had the government proposal handed to Parliament last Thursday, and in about an hour we will have the first Parliament debate about this reform. And from what I expect is that most of the parties, irrespective whether they are in the government or in the opposition, they are for this reform, and it will take place, and the schedule is as you said, the application process for B2C licenses will start in the beginning of next year, so about 9 months, and the market will open a year after.
Okay, and even Veikkaus, which is the monopoly, they were positive and actually pushing the government that they wanted this. So what is it that the government and everyone in Finland expects from the license, and what is the idea behind it?
Well, yeah, you're right that Veikkaus really saying it out loud that we should change the monopoly system was the trigger that started really the reform in Finland. And of course, the reason behind that is that Veikkaus has lost about half of the Finnish market. We are talking about a 2 billion GGR market in Finland, and Veikkaus numbers, quite recent numbers from last year, the GGR was first time for I don't know how many years, it was under 1 billion. So about half is going somewhere else, and of course the Finnish government and also Veikkaus, they want to have a competition with same terms.
All right, and the Veikkaus think they can grow then in that in the new regulated market. Is it more about at least getting it in-house, so to speak, and earn tax revenue on the total market, right?
Yeah, I think the tax revenue for the total market. But yeah, it would be interesting to see what happens with Veikkaus, how they can compete. They're a good company, and but I'm not sure if they can grow. There are lots of international big companies who are heading to Finland. But for Veikkaus also, they have plans, to my understanding, also to go abroad. So that's one of the perspective from them.
Okay, so the new legislation will allow you to offer your services abroad to other markets, not just Finland?
No. It's just Finland.
So it's not like the Estonian license.
But for now, Veikkaus as a monopoly company hasn't been able to, for example, apply license in Sweden or in Denmark.
Okay. So you mentioned the B2C licensing will open next year. Will there be other licenses for B2B, for payments, for marketing?
Yeah, I think that's one of the differences, and maybe one of the learnings from Denmark and Sweden is that we are introducing the B2B license at the same time. So a B2B license will be required from the beginning of 28. So a year after the B2C license application, there will be an application for B2B license for gaming suppliers.
Okay, and that's for game providers and platform providers?
Yeah,
primarily.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. No payment providers at this moment, at least.
Okay, and not affiliation or anything similar?
No.
All right. So what are then, obviously there's a rush now to get as many players as you can before the market opens up, and of course you don't want to, there have been some brands that have been negatively affected by doing too much, offering too much, and then being penalized by the government. So what are brands doing now, and what can you do to stay ahead or take their position now?
Yeah, the approach from different companies has been very different. As you referred, there have been companies quite aggressive in Finland in the past, but on the other hand, only one company, Betsson, has been blacklisted and given a prohibition order. But there are companies, operators really pushing the limits still, and then there are very many those who are very careful, practically doing nothing. And of course, it is for each company to decide their own strategy, and that has to be respected. But as from the lawyer's perspective, there is some room if you want to enhance your brand, or if you want to try to prepare for the market opening. There is something that you can be done. But of course, I think that the regulator is getting, even if they are still quite small and their resources are quite few, but there is still some room to do something if you want to do that.
Okay, what is something that you should absolutely not do, for example?
They are right now working with influencers and aiming towards the Finnish consumers. That's the number one thing that the regulator will see and prohibit. So that influencers in any way, that's a no-go also in the new legislation.
Okay, so you can still have Finnish on your website. You can do all of kind of that looks like targeting still the country, but maybe you're targeting the Finns outside of Finland.
Yeah, that's the one strange thing. Without going into too details, that's Finnish is spoken practically only in Finland, but it is right now. If you don't do anything else, it's okay to have a Finnish gaming site in Finnish. That's well, we don't go into details, but that's due to those islands between Finland and Sweden.
Okay, and when the market then opens up, what are we looking at in terms of marketing limitations? Can you do anything? Is it open for everything, or will there be some sort of marketing that's not allowed?
Yeah, that has been the big debate during the preparations of this legislation. There are a couple of no-goes. The regulator has taken very strict have been very strict against affiliates using affiliates. So that is practically no-go. There's no use of affiliates, whatever it means. It's forbidden. There will be no welcome bonuses. That's a no-go, and as I mentioned, using affiliates, that's a no-go. But on the other hand, quite traditional marketing, also digital marketing, sponsorships, attitude towards those is someone would say surprisingly liberal.
Okay, so if you look at sponsorships, I assume that probably ice hockey teams have already signed up some sponsors preparing for the 2026 market opening or 2027 market opening.
Yeah, ice hockey in Finland is the number one, but the national team has with Veikkaus with the current monopoly, but for the Finnish league and the clubs, I think the market is still open, but there is lots of debates going on, but now they're trying to figure out what is the market price.
Right. But you mentioned affiliates. Affiliates is obviously a very, very big part of at least the unlicensed, probably not Veikkaus, not doing so much with affiliates, but the unlicensed market uses affiliates quite a lot, and they drive quite a lot of traffic. Those affiliates are probably going to want to keep earning money in Finland. So if they can't do it in the regulated market, they will most likely try to do it in the unregulated market. So how was the regulator thinking here then? Would they assume that they're just not going to do it anymore, or are they going to go after them?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. What are they going to do with them? What are they going to do with the black market operations in more general? That I think is one of the crucial questions regarding the future of the new system. The new legislation clearly aims for high channelization rate, and that's one of the written targets there. But what are the means for that? That's a good question. There are some tools, but is that enough? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, have they announced any tools that will be available? Like, for example, blocking of websites. Obviously, it's used a lot in other countries. Maybe not in the Nordics in general, because we're quite liberal in that sense that we're not allowed to do it. But have there been any tools like that the regulator will be able to use towards the black market?
Well, of course, the B2B license could have some meaning. I don't know. We heard in the previous discussion that it has some, but necessarily not too much. Then taxation. There's a very interesting text in the current proposal that tax winnings from the new system from the licensed operators will be tax-free, and of course the other ones will not be tax-free. But it is even more strict that you cannot deduct losings from winnings. So if you pay for 100 euros and then you lose 10, you win 10 but lose the rest, they will tax you for the 10.
Is there anyone that has been taxed? I've heard that before, but is there anyone that has been taxed? Because that's currently in place as well, right? Is there anyone that has been taxed bigly?
Well, currently, all the winnings from European Economic Area are tax-free. So that's the difference. But from Curacao or somewhere else, they should be taxed. But there has been tax cases in Finland. A couple of course, no one declares the taxes by themselves. But for some way, the authorities have been have found out that there is this kind of income, and there has been a couple of cases, a couple of quite big cases also in the public.
Okay, so there will probably be more push towards, if there are players who wants to play outside of the regulator, they will start using EMIs that are external, or start using crypto more, keeping the money outside of Finland so that the tax authority doesn't find them.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, if we compare the marketing opening to Sweden and Denmark, so we saw in Sweden and Denmark, as in many other regulators here in Europe, that as soon as it opens, the companies that get the license, they start marketing a lot. And there's TV commercial after TV commercial back, and then there's going to be a backlash from the public, from the politicians, that is doing too much, and they told the regulator, we need to start cutting down on this and start making it so that people don't market too much. Do we expect the same thing to happen in Finland?
Yeah, we do. We are expecting, well, let's see, but the talks have been about that we will have about 40, just like in Denmark, 40 operators coming to Finland, maybe 40, 50. And the market opens in the beginning of 27. You will see all those advertisements. An interesting thing is that we will have the next election in April of 27, and I would bet quite much money that this will be one of the topics discussed in electoral debates. All this gambling advertisement and all gambling problems.
Right. Yeah. There's probably going to be a lot of news articles right before that election then about how someone lost everything they had. You mentioned loyalty and bonuses. You said there's no welcome bonus. You can't give a welcome bonus, so players aren't really enticed to jump between different brands. If you compare that to Sweden and Denmark, in Sweden you're only allowed to give welcome bonuses. You can't give any other bonuses after the first deposit. Denmark, it's more open. You can give both. Are there any other bonuses that you're allowed or not allowed to do in the new registration in Finland?
Yeah, you can offer bonuses for established customers. So when you have customers in your database, you can offer them bonuses, but not based on how much they are playing. So it should be, the bonuses should be equal in with other metrics.
Okay, so everyone needs to get the same bonus. It can't be based on your activity in any way.
Yeah, it could be based on what kind of games you're playing, but not in the amount of your losings or spendings.
Okay, interesting. Will there be any other limits or regulation on? So, for example, we have in Germany, you're not allowed to spin faster than 5 seconds, or you can't bet more than €1. UK are introducing £2 bet limits or £2.5 bet limits. So anything similar in the Finnish legislation?
That could be in the toolbox. There's a chance for secondary legislation through the ministry decrees that they can set limits for certain games for stakes, maximum stakes, and for time spent during or how fast the wheel can turn, or how fast you can get your winnings. So that could be there, but in the legislation, it's not there yet.
And there's nothing on. Is there anything in the current legislation about, say, RTP, for example? For example, in Malta, it's 95%, which has now been lowered. And anything about RTP in slots and other games?
No, not at this moment. But yeah, there's a self-exclusion tool for all the licensed gaming that will be there, and for each operator, a player has to before the first deposit, you have to set your own deposit limits for a day and for a month, and those can be changed, but with after a certain period. So that's the basic, and then there is of course the duty of care for each operator to monitor the gaming behavior and to also to intervene if there's a reason for that.
Are they introducing limits for know your customer or source of funds, those kind of affordability checks?
Not at this moment. That's not there yet. But yeah, of course, there's a lot of.
Maybe that's something they will expect to be fall under duty of care of customer, right? That
could be.
Have to look into if someone deposits 100,000 in one day.
Yeah, these are of course the details that will be determined later on, but that's a possibility. Even though I think there's quite a large understanding that salary is not, which is basically public in Finland. You can see everybody's salary from the tax office, but the salary doesn't tell everything about your economic situation.
No, sure. Taxation is a good thing about the public information in the Nordics. It's readily available, so you can't really hide as an operator and say we didn't know, because you can look into it, right? If we look at channelization, so channelization is obviously key for many of the regulators because they want to get as much channelization as possible because it means more tax revenue, and that's usually in the end what they want, and it can also help to protect players, right? That's also one of the key marketing there. So what is the hope for channelization rate in Finland?
Well, if it is now close to 50, it's going up anyway. But yeah, there has been discussions about that it should be somewhere where they are in Denmark, about around 90%, and that should be the aim. In my mind, that should be the only KPI for the new system to get it as high as possible. We know it's 100% it's dreams, but somewhere around 90% should be the aim.
And what do you think? Is there anything in the new legislation that says that might not happen? Like, for example, the affiliation is, in my mind, the affiliation limit will likely push a lot of players outside of or there will be websites that help trying to push players outside of the legislation.
Yeah, well, there are. If you look at, I have been discussing with many operators and realize that they see this new legislation very differently. For big operators with money to put on advertising and get sponsorships and build their brand, this seems like a good system. They will definitely come in and get the license. But for smaller operators, I understand it could be more difficult to get your brand known and get your customers if you don't have all the money to put into advertising and sponsorships and brand building. So I think that at the beginning, at least, I think that there are many smaller operators who are really thinking if it's worth coming in, putting all the effort, paying 22% tax from GTR, or is it more worth it just to continue as they are right now? And of course there are risks, but
so cost then. I mean, you mentioned cost. How much will the license cost? In the terms, it's not going to be like Germany, 5 million, right? Or
no, I think that the license cost, of course, 22% of the GTR for gambling tax, but the cost itself, it's quite, let's say, modest or reasonable. It depends on the GTR of the operator. So they will pay this surveillance fee, which varies from 4,000 euros annual to 400,000. So that's the cost. If the GGR is over 50 million, it's the maximum for 24, if I recall correctly.
Okay, but then it's still less than 1%.
Yeah.
So it's quite affordable at least. So it's possible to get a license, and it's possible to stay in the market regardless of your size almost. That's positive. But affiliation is the one big limitation to the channelization in my book. I think the bonuses will be fine as long as you can reward the players and they're not pushed elsewhere. And if there's no limitations to spin speed or anything like that, I think it will be okay. Do you think? We've seen in Sweden, for example. Let's bring up the channelization in Sweden. Our other panelist that should have been here, Gustav Hostel. He always talks about channelization in Sweden as his main point, and it's been steadily going down since at least COVID. What do you say about the Swedish channelization?
Yeah, if I believe it was well above 90% at the beginning, and if it's now somewhere around 70%, of course, there's a big black market in Sweden right now, and something should be done. I think that some of the measures from Swedish regulator were quite hasty during the COVID, and they pushed many customers, many players to use other services, and of course that should be avoided. One interesting thing is from my perspective that we have been looking lots to Denmark and Sweden and what's good there and what's bad there, and in the big picture their systems look quite similar from how we see it, but the big difference in those countries is the way that the regulator works. In Denmark, the regulator is willing to discuss. They are willing to have a dialogue, and in Sweden, that doesn't exist, and that makes a big difference. But if a regulator is looking for solutions, and the other one is not just looking for problems, then there's a difference.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even the government in Sweden now has started a commission to look into how they can change the legislation in order to make it so it's harder for the black market, or so the regulator at least has some tools against the black market. Right now, as long as you don't have Swedish on your website, as long as you don't have affiliates that you work with that have Swedish on their sites, as long as you don't offer anything in Swedish in terms of customer support, you're deemed not to be targeting the Swedish market, then you can, in essence, be open to Swedish market. What do you think about? Is that something similar that will happen in Finland, or will it be targeting anyone who takes Finnish players will be deemed as market targeting Finland?
Yeah, well, basically, I would hope that the unlike nowadays, that the Finnish language would be perceived as targeting Finns, because it is talked only in Finland. So, I think in many cases, in many legislations, many industries, Finland has been doing what they have done in Sweden a couple of years earlier, and that is quite much expected to happen also here. But hopefully, I would say that hopefully we have taking the good examples from Denmark and Sweden, and also taking those things that hasn't been working there, and taking the lessons from there.
Okay, and then what the future then? How will the legislation look in, say, 5 years after launch?
Yeah, I think the big picture is there, but there will be many details that have been changed. We will have a license system with these games that are now opening, and I hope that those entering the Finnish market will find it interesting also in the future. Even though of course there will be those exiting the market, but hopefully someone also entering later on. As I look right now, the Finnish market is quite interesting. Finns someone used to say we Finns are heavy players, heavy gamblers. We used to be number 3 in the world per capita.
A lot of dark hours.
Yeah, we have lots of darkness in Finland during the winter time, so that's the thing to do. But yeah, but of course there's the other side of problems. We also have problems with gambling at this moment, and that development we will see during the next years will also affect how the whole industry is perceived in the future. Right now, even though there has been lots of debate about gambling and gaming and money problems, gambling problems in Finland, the industry as a whole has, if not positive, quite neutral takeoff from the Finnish people, and I hope that will not be changed to negative in the future.
Great. I think it's going to be very interesting to see the launch of the Finnish legislation and see how the market develops compared to similar times in Finland or in Sweden and Denmark. Thank you, Pekka. It's been great talking to you. Does anyone have any questions about the Finnish legislation, regulator, or anything?
Well, yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, of course, that would be a new thing in Finland, that we will have a B2B from the beginning of 2028, and it will be interesting to see how it affects. Right now, of course, suppliers have been interested in what's going on and how it will develop, and will there be some kind of transitional period and block off, or will they what kind of duties they will have towards the operators they are working with? But I think at this point, looking at the future legislation, I would say that it's an interesting and it's a good thing to be introduced at the same time as the new legislation for operators.
Yeah, I think it also gives. It's better if the provider are responsible for their games, because in other legislation where you don't have B2B provider licenses, you have the operator responsible for sending in the games and making sure the games are regulated, which can be. Yeah, and I think it's better if the regulator talks to the provider, then it has to go through a third party or the operator in these cases. Any other question? Yeah.
It's not a question, it's more an advice, free of charge. You should do a market research during the pre-regulation in order to have another one after the regulation will be in place, just to compare the figures, because it will help you for the future when politicians will say that the market should be restricted, that this is not working, and they will push more stricter regulation, and you will have the data to prove some certain things regarding what is working and what isn't.
Yeah, thanks for this. And from what I've understood is that's what they are doing. The problem, of course, is that Yeah, who's doing it exactly? We have seen different research that can be interpreted very differently from where you looked it from, and also there's some data that's a fact, and some data it's just an assumption. But I agree.
Speaking of that, is there a lobby organization that operators in Finland?
Yeah, we have a gambling association with, I would say, right now 8 quite big operators as members, and there's one.
Okay, so it will be them then. All right, anyone else? No more questions? Perfect, then thank you, Pekka. It's been great.
Thank you very much, Alex. And if you have any questions later on during these days here in Prague or later, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm happy to help.